devil is amongst us. Stay back, boy. This calls for divine intervention. I kick ass for the Lord.
When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping." Fred Rogers. Let's talk about COVID-19. Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast reclaiming faith in the political context of discussion. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. And you can follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Please like, share, subscribe, follow us. You can also give us a review. That helps others find us. I'll be doing this show again solo, but you can always find my partner and better half of the show, September. You can find her on her podcasts with Geek Grills. You can also find her on Twitch and Twitter at 9of12. That's NINEOF12. Again, that's NINEOF12. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site, and you can find us at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where you can visit and support us. Just $2 a month helps go a long way to keep the show going. You can also contribute bits in Twitch or subscribe for free at Amazon Prime when we're live. September is trying to basically, right now, the reason she's not with us today is it's St. Patrick's Day, and it's basically everybody staying home because of social distancing, which is a good thing. This is what we're going to be talking about, some of the things we're going to be talking about. So what she's trying to do is she's trying to basically set up a virtual bar kind of situation where people can watch bands and stuff and give tips and stuff, because a lot of local bands and stuff, they live day to day kind of thing. Sure, they have day jobs, but this really helps them as far as their support and stuff. So what she's trying to do is set up a virtual situation to where they can perform in a studio or you know, in a place that is fairly safe and that doesn't have a lot of people, minimum staff, and record or go live, and people can watch and tape, and that's what she's trying to organize right now. So that's why I'm doing the show solo today. I wish her the best of luck on this, because that's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things being canceled. There's a lot of big events being canceled, sports events. NBA, NHL has been suspended. The Major League Baseball has postponed their opening day and stuff like that until this is passed. WrestleMania, for those wrestling fans, have been basically moved to the training center, the performance center, where they will do it without an audience and minimal crew. They will also, a lot of indie events happen around that same time frame, and a lot of those have been canceled. And a lot of indie wrestlers, a lot of those that, you know, don't make a lot of money or make a decent living, but it's a show-to-show kind of situation. They are paid the old school way of they're paid per show, are really struggling now. I'm seeing a lot of content providers on YouTube, bigger content providers that work for companies like What Culture, Cultaholic are two that I personally follow, but even and also even they'll be working from home and stuff like that. So that's kind of changing dynamics of things, and it's going to be a struggle as far as views and things like that, and it's going to be a bit more costly for them, especially for like Cultaholic, which is an independent group. And then you've got like Critical Role, which announced today that they're going black, that they're not going to be doing their live streams for a while, or any live shows for a while, until we get over this crisis situation. The social distancing is extremely important. Basically, what the big point of this social distancing isn't so much that it is going to stop people from getting the illness. It is, but it'll help. But more importantly, and this has been talked about quite often by more educated people than myself, and that is flattening the curve. And what flattening the curve basically means is that instead of this huge giant spike like what happened in China and what happened in Italy, where so many people got sick so rapidly, and those who are the most vulnerable got sick so quickly, were basically in hospitals, and it overwhelmed the healthcare system, that there were a lot of tough choices that were made for healthcare providers. That it is that that's what the social distancing does, is it help flattens the curve. We'll get more into that a little bit, but that's some of the things that are going on. There's a lot of cancellations, a lot of stuff going on. So if you were planning on going to a live event of some kind of local performer or whatever, and you've already bought your tickets and stuff, instead of asking for a refund, let them have it. Give it as a donation, because a lot of people are going to ask for refunds and stuff like that. And honestly, these performers, especially theaters and stuff like that, local theaters and stuff, are going to struggle for the next couple of months. It's not just going. This is not going to be a 30-day thing. This is going to be a little while, as far as this kind of struggle. So if you can help out, please do so. So, happy stay in St. Patrick's Day. I hope you've stocked what you needed for St. Patrick's Day. If you didn't, stay home. It's not important enough to go out and get beer or whatever, okay? I did go to the grocery store today because I needed to get a few supplies, because I live alone and I have to go in and get things when I have money, unfortunately. And there was a lot of people out today. So, and it looked like the zombie apocalypse had hit. It was just terrifying to look at so many empty shelves. And I'm just, a lot of people are panicking. Some for good reasons, some for not so good reasons. I'll get into some of those later too. But I want to touch on several things today, and I'm going to try to keep it within an hour. I'm going to try to entertain as well as inform. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up into a couple of different points. The first one is the economy. With Congress planning on possibly voting in subsidies to help and also to do a relief, possibly even put some cash into your pockets to kind of help out those individuals who need it. There was a good article by the Brookings Institute about universal basic income, about a one-time universal and how best to do it, and discussion of that. The one thing that has come up quite a bit, especially with younger individuals, is the fact that this kind of epidemic has proven that our economy can be more telecommuting. Telecommuting is a big deal because it allows us to be at home. It saves environmentally, because then we're not having to go out and we're not having to drive and stuff like that. It also saves, commuter costs, stuff like that. And it also gives us more control of our situations as employees, as far as how we control our environment and everything else. The economy is slowly starting to show that we could actually do this. There's been a lot of advocates for telecommuting, and they've been pushing that this year. They were really going to push for this year to be the year where more and more companies start doing telecommuting. And right now, it looks like that's the case. That a lot of companies are realizing they can telecommute. There are some liability issues with certain jobs, especially when it comes to customer service, and if they're dealing with taking payments or stuff like that, because of the fact that they are taking payments. You have to be much more careful about the hiring process, and you also have to be very careful about because most jobs like mine, my day job is I am customer service, and we do take payments in my particular field. And there's of course we're not allowed to have any. Our phones have to be turned off and put away and stuff like that for security purposes, so, to protect our customers. So there is a bit more liability situations that, of course, would come up. So the screening process is going to be a bit harder, or a bit harsher as far as that's concerned, for several reasons. Just to make sure that people, so that if this comes to be, I do think that it is a economy situation, that I honestly see that we'll be seeing this shift more to telecommuting as much as possible for as many jobs as possible. That if you don't have to go out, if you don't have to leave your home, what that would do as far as how it would save on childcare and stuff like that. Yes, of course, the children would have to be quiet or whatever while you're at work or whatever, but it's a lot easier than having to put them in daycare. It's a lot cheaper than that way. Or even if they are in daycare at that point while you're at work, it's a much easier thing, because it's like 5 minutes there, 5 minutes back, whatever the case may be. It becomes a easier transition at that point. And I do think in some instances it actually would be better for the economy, as far as those individuals who have a harder time entering certain jobs because of the fact that they have daycare requirements or stuff like that. If they could work from home, I think that would be better. This is also, however, this doesn't work in like the service industry, especially restaurants and stuff like that, which currently is being hit very hard right now. A lot of restaurants and stuff, especially smaller restaurants, mom and pop places and stuff, are closing down and things like that, especially in larger cities that are having more of the more of the cases coming through and stuff like that. And we're seeing more and more of these cases coming through day by day. And more of these cases, it's going to spread. It's because this is economy, this is everything, and here's the thing. There are fingers to be pointed, and I'm not going to do that for a while. I want us to get through this, and I want us to help each other as much as we can. There will be a day of reckoning. There will be a time when I will call out and I will point fingers. And this may be a sermon. This may not be on the main show. Because I know September wants to keep this more positive, and I understand that. And I'm trying to keep that air while I'm doing these shows without her. But there will be one. I will have my fuel, and will be ready for it. But right now, what I want to do is try to help, try to inform, try to give some encouragement. Here's the thing about the economy. Yes, it's a little shaky right now. I know. I've looked at my 401k. Oh, I understand. It'll be better. It'll get better. Supply lines aren't down currently. Okay. The food trucks are coming in. When I was at the grocery store picking up a few items, I heard them say the dairy truck's here, bread truck's here, blah, blah, blah. So they're getting stuff in. So at this point, I do believe, things will start to even out once the initial panic shopping happens. Things will even out. Everybody will be able to get their toilet paper and stuff like that. Hand sanitizer is not that big a deal. You could probably make it at your house. There are things on YouTube to teach you how to do that. Soap and water, Alton Brown, Alton. The guy from Good Eats, okay, did a video about washing hands and why it's better for you than hand sanitizer. And I agree. Hand sanitizer is a not a quick fix, but it is a stop gap measure until you can get to wash your hands. So if you're not at a place where, if you're not at some place where you can wash your hands immediately and you need to use hand sanitizer, you can use it until you can get to a place where you can wash your hands. That's what hand sanitizer does for you. That is all it's designed to do. It's not to take over washing hands. Also, as a friend of mine pointed out on Eric, he is at Dresden Black on on Twitter, pointed out is like, also make sure that you moisturize with a good moisturizer, because all of this hand washing and stuff will dry out your hands, and cracked skin still lets germs in. So so he has a good point there. So and I want to give a shout out to Eric for that, and I wanted to point that out, that he said that. That's something you want to consider as well. I'm sorry if this is a little schizophrenic. I do have notes, and I am trying to stick to them, but there's just so much information going on, and everything's changing so rapidly and so quickly, and it's one of those situations where you don't know what to take in. Again, as far as your health information, don't go to Twitter. Don't go to Facebook. Don't look at memes. Go to CDC. Go to the World Health Organization. Those are the people who know what they're talking about. They get paid lots and lots of money. Well, they don't get paid lots and lots of money, but they spent their lives studying this kind of stuff. This is what they do. This is what they're experts at. Go to their websites. Every time I pull up YouTube, it says, there's been a new update from the CDC. Do you want information? You click on it, and it'll take you right there. So YouTube's already on the ball about this. So there's a lot of places, but go to the CDC if you want information. Don't listen to politicians. Don't listen to celebrities. Stuff like that about things. Now, I will say this, that celebrities are also pointing you to these websites and stuff like that, or saying these things. Max Brooks, if you don't know who that is Mel Brooks, and if you don't know who he is, go away. But Max Brooks is the son of Mel Brooks. Max Brooks also wrote World War Z, which was turned into that really awful Brad Pitt movie, and he also wrote The Survivor's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Both of them really interesting books. He's got a new book coming out soon too. I just wanted to give that shout out. But he did a great thing about social distancing and about explaining why it's important. He's a couple of years older than I am, and he basically stated, like, look, if I get it, I'm most likely going to be okay. I'll be fine. My father is 93 years old. And if he gets it, he may give it to Carl Reiner, who is the father of Rob Reiner. He directed The Princess Bride. If you've never heard of The Princess Bride, you need to leave now. Other than that, he directed many great movies. But his father was also a great director, also a great comic. And also they're friends with Dick Van Dyke. They could all give it to each other, and they could all get sick and die because they're in their 90s. They're much more susceptible to this kind of stuff. So social distancing isn't about protecting young people. It isn't about us going out and not having a good time, or it's so boring and we're stuck at the house. Yeah, blah blah blah. I want to go out and have party. I'm so young and I won't get sick. It's probably true. You won't get sick, but you can give it to somebody else that can be sick. And there are people of your own age bracket that may be of a risk factor, that it could be much worse on them. And that's what this is about. People are like, well, people get the flu all the time. Yes, but the flu is 0.1% death rate versus this virus, which is currently at 3.7%. I think it went up again. I haven't looked at the latest statistics, but because there was this huge spike in Italy just recently, that because of everything that's going on there, It's a huge difference. It's like 300 times difference. Okay. To give you an example, you take 100 people, okay, and one person dies. You take 10 people, 3 people die. That's a huge difference. Okay? Just extrapolate that out. That's why social distancing is important. Okay? And I've said it before and I'm saying it now. This is not just about you. Stop thinking about you. This isn't about you. This is about other people. You know, Miss Grande, because I can never pronounce her proper name. Taylor Swift, a lot of other people who have younger fans are going, hey guys, take this seriously. This is important. Go to the CDC. Read the information. This is important, especially about the social distancing, everything. Because there are influencers, and I hate that term. I hate it. There are influencers on TikTok and Twitter and stuff like this that are going around licking things in public because they want to prove themselves. It's called the Controvirus Challenge. You know what your Controvirus Challenge can do? Wash hands, while singing a cool song or something like that. Stop it. Just stop it. Okay? Oh. I mean, really. This is why smoking is now up to 21. Well, there's several reasons. Smoking is extremely bad, and this is why I sound the way I do. It's not because I have a cold. It's because spring is starting to come to the south, so we're getting some pollen in the air, and I'm also a smoker. So, no, I do not have any of the other symptoms. I just have a little bit of a stuffy nose and a little bit of a throat thing. I have no fever. I have no headache, which for someone who is a constant migraine sufferer, it's amazing I don't have a headache. So, okay. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, and that's what's going on there. So you're not worried about me if you're listening to this and be like, oh God, he's kind of clearing his throat a little bit. Is he okay? It's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. I promise. Nothing's bad's going on. In the links, I'll also be adding a comment. I'll also be adding a YouTube video from Filming the Squirrel. He's hit and miss, but he had some good points about, just stay at home, calm down. The supply lines haven't been broken yet. We're not in a disaster. We're just, things are a little tense right now. Stay at home, learn, read a book, read some books, whatever. Pick up a new hobby, learn a new skill, learn something new. They always say learn something new every day. Today is, if you've got the internet, and there are a lot of, I know there's at least a couple cable companies. I don't know about AT&T or others. I know there are several cable companies that are saying, hey, if you don't have internet, we know your kids are, having to do homeschooling and stuff like that or do virtual schooling and stuff like that. If you don't have internet, hey, give us a call. We'll get you some internet for a couple of months. It may be extended depending on how long. A couple of months will last until May anyways, and by then, school will be out for the most part at that point. So they're at least attempting to try to help out. I know it's like, well, yeah, it's a big business. What do they get out? Well, it's good press for them. And maybe these people will stay on with the free internet for a while, and then start paying for it after that. Maybe find out that they can't afford it or whatever. A lot of companies are also not evicting people, not turning off water, not turning off power, things like that. So there's a lot of good going out there in the world right now. Companies are realizing that they're having to help out their customers. Now, this does not mean that you're not going to continue to get billed. So keep that in mind if you're having to make that sacrifice and like, okay, I can't pay this bill right now because I need to eat or I need to buy medicine. But on the same thing, it's just keep that in mind. Pay a little bit at a time if you can. Pay what you can to try to keep it from being just astronomically high when that bill finally does that bill finally does come due and you got to pay it in a certain time frame. So other than that, there's a lot of those things going around as well. So just keep that in mind. Um, there'll be a lot of links in the descriptions about the things I've discussed today. So just, look at the links in the description on YouTube as well as the podcast when the podcast comes up later. We'll also, so those are some of the things that are going on as about that situation. Just try to reach out to each other, stuff like that. Try to, there are things going on. People are scared, stuff like that. And I'll get to a little bit more of that in a minute about thoughtfulness. I'm going to read a tweet. This is from the Rude Pundit, at Rude Pundit on Twitter. It says, I'm thinking Gen X is best equipped for all of this because we spent our childhoods believing that the entire planet was going to be wiped out by nuclear war at any moment. Dealing with constant gnawing fear is just second nature to us. Which is kind of, if you think about it, as far as my generation, I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up with movies like Terminator, like Mad Max and Road Warrior and all of these kind of movies, War Games. There's one. All of these kind of movies where basically the end of the world could happen at any moment. And it was terrifying. And you grew up with this, and this was our entertainment, because we were that terrified of it. I think that's one of the reasons why, like, ever since the Cold War stopped, the Terminator movies really hasn't done as well. I mean, Terminator 2 was after, but that was different. But for the most part, the Terminator movies haven't done well, for example, because of the fact that there wasn't that existential crisis of two huge major superpowers with enough nuclear armament between them to annihilate the planet 25,000 times over. So we grew up with this as a generation, and we're kind of like, yeah, okay. And then I saw, I expect. I mean, I remember, and this is a distinct memory, surprisingly, with as many drugs I've taken since then. This is why I don't run for office, people. But a group of us in the third grade, and I am not making this up. I am not kidding you. In the third grade, a group of us were sitting around talking about the end of the world and how most of us, and we were, this is a small town in the South, so of course we went to churches and stuff like that, and how most of us felt that God's wrath or God's vengeance or the apocalypse was going to be nuclear war. We're third graders. That put us 8, 9? So yeah, our generation was already pretty fucked up. Yeah. So, and I saw another tweet that's a little funnier. It's like, like the social about Generation Xers, because again, I'm tooting my own horn a little bit about this, but I'm just making jokes, or and being like, yeah, whatever, because it's not completely true. But another person, I can't remember who put it, is like, the Generation X it has been preparing for this their whole life. We were the first kids that were latchkey kids and stuff like that. We grew up having to be at home alone, fix our own meals while our parents were having to work 2 jobs and stuff like that, and everything else, and entertain ourselves with video games. This is nothing. We're already used to social distancing, so it's not completely true. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to miss people. And hanging out with people, other than going to work. I basically posted like, look, because I'm having to go to work in a office building, I am a vector right now, and I'm not going to take that chance. And possibly if someone has it in our office and doesn't know it, or if they do have it and they do know it and they still have to come and work because, our system sucks as far as healthcare and everything else. I'm not going to give it to somebody else that then could possibly pass it to somebody that's vulnerable or that already may be vulnerable. So That being said, so for at least 30 days, I'm basically cut myself off from society, except through this wonderful channel and social media and stuff like that. But as far as human contact, no, that's just not happening at all. So that's one of the things. So and here in my local area, there was a bar crawl that happened this weekend because St. Patrick's Day was on a weekday, so they decided to do the bar crawl. And they decided to go ahead and do the bar crawl anyway instead of canceling it. And because of that, now basically they are doing dine out only for restaurants and stuff like that in the area. And that there's wait staff that require that money and stuff like that are going to start that are basically unemployed or laid off or whatever, because young people had to go out and get drunk, you know and the same as and Nashville was had a big party where they were saying, oh, we're not scared, we're gonna have this big party and stuff like that. And Hal Sparks, who is on Twitter, pointed out that Nashville's main hospital in Nashville only has 16 ICU beds, just to put it in perspective. There's a room full of people shouting, we're okay, and stuff like that, and basically being defiant about this, social distancing and stuff like that. And then they do that. And there's 16 beds, because here's the thing. If you take it, and this is why I'm saying stop it, just do what you're supposed to do. Listen to the experts, do what they're asking of you. Because let's take one person and they have the virus and they don't know it, and they interact, let's say minimum of 5 people, and we'll do the 5 by 5 people per, and we'll do a 75% communicability rate, okay? Because I don't know, they haven't listed that because they don't know. I found that out, they're not sure, so I'm going to take kind of the flu view on it, and it's about 75% communicability. So that's 4 people that get it, and they pass it on to, and then they meet 5 people, and 4 of those 5, and so on and so on. You see what happens and how that cascades. That's why social distancing is so important, is so that it doesn't cascade like that, so it doesn't overwhelm. And and there are people that are paying attention, people who are listening, and then there are people that don't give about it, and that's the problem. That's it. That's an issue. So, because this show is about political context as well as religion, and I haven't hit either of those yet, let's start with the political context. Daily Kos posted a voting roundup thing, and basically talked about how we needed universal mail-in vote by mail ballots for 2020, and I agree with that. But they also have this handy dandy map, okay, that they produce that I will also be putting in the link that's part of the article. Now, there are 4 states currently that has universal vote by mail, and that's Washington, Oregon, Utah, and oh God, is that Wyoming? No, it's either it's one of the square states. Oh, Colorado. It's Colorado. Jesus, the square states always confuse me, but it's Colorado. It's Colorado. So, so it's, let me try to get, I'm looking at the map and I did, it's like, oh God, I have failed everything. So it's, Washington, Oregon, Utah, which kind of surprises me a bit, and Colorado. California is transitioning to a universal vote by mail. Then there are a lot of states, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are a lot of states that require no excuse, meaning you can just ask for an absentee ballot. They'll send it to you, and you can fill it out and send it back. North Carolina, which is my home state, is one of them. Virginia is another. Florida and Georgia are both ones. There surprisingly enough, there's not a lot of them in the Northeast. New York doesn't have that currently. They're transitioning into it. Massachusetts doesn't have it. Maine does, and so does Vermont, but not New Hampshire or the other. I always get those two confused. Sorry, I'm not very great with geography, but a lot of states do. So a lot of the southern states don't. I will be the first to admit. Most of the ones that require what's known as require excuse, meaning you have to have some type of reason why you can't get out to the polls. But overall, there's about 30 or so. Oh, I forgot Hawaii. Hawaii also has 5 states. I'm sorry, I missed Hawaii because it's 5 states that give the universal vote by mail. And then, there's a lot of states that do no excuse required. New York and Connecticut are transitioning to no excuse right now. California is transitioning to universal mail. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 states out of the rest of the union does require an excuse. The rest of them don't require excuse. So vote if this is still going on in November, which I hope it isn't because that's a little scary. But if it isn't, you can still you'd still be able to vote by mail. It just means that you'd have to, get your ballot a little bit earlier, mail it off, and make sure and everything else. But that is still a possibility. The other question that comes up is, can Trump, if this is still going on in November, can Trump suspend it? And no. He does not have the power to. He can declare a national emergency, but he cannot suspend the vote. Okay, what can happen is the individual states can, do whatever they want to the election, and then another party can refute that, and then it would go into the courts at that point. The biggest case that you may remember for those who are old enough would be Bush v. Gore, or Gore v. one of the two. But basically, where Gore was wanting the recount to continue in Florida, and Bush didn't want it because he had already won Florida supposedly, and so that was going on, and the Supreme Court made that decision. If it goes to the Supreme Court about that in any of the states, it's going to go to Trump because of how the courts have been stacked, because no one listened, and that's why we have Trump. And he got to put in put two people onto the court, and by putting 2 people onto the court, it basically it stacked it in his favor. So the courts are going to be that way for a while. Because individuals didn't listen and they didn't get out and vote in 2016, and so we've lost the Supreme Court for a good while because they got young people. That was one of their big pushes, was making sure that young people or younger justices were put on the courts so that they would be able to stay longer and they would be more conservative. So, but himself, he could not do it himself. So if this goes on until November, he would not be able to suspend the election or stop the election. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind, okay, as far as that's concerned. Now there has been some states that have currently postponed their primaries and stuff, and that's fine. Their primaries, and I'll be perfectly honest, right now, the primaries are after this Tuesday. I don't see much of the primaries meaning anything at this point, because of everything that's going on. Not only just with the virus, but the fact that the pathway for Bernie and that really bad performance on Saturday. Don't get me wrong, both of them did poorly on Saturday. It was just, or the last debate was just abysmal. So that being said, there's where we are on that front. So there's my election stuff. There'll be election news tonight. I really don't. At this point, I'm not going to follow it too closely as far as the election results are concerned. At this point, when the primaries are over, that's when they're over. I have a feeling they're pretty much already over at this point. So, but as far as the elections for those individuals who are concerned about this, and concerned, there are people that I've heard out there, can this be suspended and stuff? And this has been a question that's been going around for a little bit now. In political circles is like, not really. There could be certain things that could be done at a state level, but as far as a national level, he cannot suspend the elections. The elections have to go through they're constitutionally mandated. The states, however, could wiggle things a bit, but for the most part, there has to be an election. So, unless of invasion, I think it's invasion or rebellion. Those are the two things. And even when there was a rebellion, there was still an election. There just was not. The southern states just didn't vote because they weren't part of the union, supposedly. So, but there was still an election, An election went on during the middle of the Civil War. So, while men were killing each other on the battlefield, we could still have an election in the states. We can have an election during the virus, and that's where the universal mail-in ballots come into play. And that's something that states will probably be struggling with for a while. So that's something, to keep in mind and keep in your thoughts. Now, the religious side. Luke 10:25-37. It's the Good Samaritan parable. Who is your neighbor? It's anybody. When I went to the store today, there were a lot of older individuals at the store buying stuff. There was a lot of not stuff there. There was a lot of not stuff. There was still stuff on the shelves. There was food to be had. It was just, it was not as big of a pickings as you would prefer, but there was still food to be had. That being said, we are each other's neighbors. And if there are people in your world or your neighbor and stuff that, are elderly or whatever, go to them and say, hey, do you need me to go shopping for you? I'll be more than happy to do that. Give me a list. Tell me what you want. I can be on the phone with you if you want. Make sure I get, in case there's any things missing or whatever, and you can tell me what to get. We're going to be in our homes alone. Those individuals that may not have as much entertainment versus those that do, reach out to them. Say, hey, are you okay with entertainment? Do you need some books? Do you need some videos, DVDs, video games? Is there something I can bring to your house and leave at your doorstep with, and you can, and I'll make sure that they're, they've been wiped off and everything. I'll leave them at your doorstep, let you know they're there. That way, if you don't want to talk to me, I understand, because we're doing the social distancing. Reach out to people that live alone. Like myself, I live alone, but there are people that talk to me on Messenger and stuff. Reach out to those people that are having a social distance and be by themselves, because it's going to be really tough on them. As they may already be kind of social, not very connected anyways, but they do have some social connections. But now that they're even going to be more disconnected, more not getting out and stuff like that, reach out to them, make sure that they're okay, make sure they don't spiral. check on your loved ones, check on your parents and grandparents. Make sure everybody's okay. Um, Pick up a craft occasionally. Hey, if nothing else, you can always learn to knit or sew or something like that. There's plenty of YouTube videos that teach you how to start. If you have the materials already, um, you know, write, be creative. Foamy the Squirrel, the video that will be posted also, it just talks about, just learn something, be creative, but also reach out to others, find ways to help each other through this, message each other, talk to each other, call each other, video each other, maybe start doing Twitch or Discord or whatever board games on over the internet or or roll top games or whatever online. Find ways to connect with each other even if you can't be physically together. Learn how to connect as much with each other as physically possible. So at this point, that's try to be good to each other, try to be well with each other. Try to look out for each other. Like I said, help your neighbors, as much as you can. Speaking of that, the carrot this week is going shopping for those most vulnerable with the virus. There was a woman in North Carolina that basically that is basically trying to help her elderly neighbors and stuff like that. She's in the Duke area, and I don't hold that against her. She's in the. Sorry, I'm a Carolina fan. It's a Carolina joke, North Carolina joke. But she's she she was calling her mother or her father, and he lives in New Jersey, and he was having to go grocery shopping and stuff like that, and she couldn't help him, but so he decided to help her neighbors who were elderly and stuff, go shopping for them. And that's where that's where I point out, if you can do that, just offer to help as much as you can. Again, offer to help those individuals that are less fortunate as much as possible as well. Reach out. I know this is going to be some tough times, but this is also where, and some people have talked about the bad humanity, especially with all the fights about the toilet paper and stuff like that. But there's also some good in humanity. Let's show that now. Let's show the good of humanity. There's no stick this week, mostly because there's so much just going on right now that we all need more love. We all need more goodness. And, there's enough negativity going on right now that I don't need to add to that with a stick right now. So I'm going to leave you with the goodness of that woman's heart to go out and do good for other people with a great carrot. And I am glad that she did that. Thank you for joining us at Hearsay and Hearsay. I'm Reverend Barney. You can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can follow the show. You can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, podcast, as well as our website. Just Google us. Don't forget our Patreon page, where $2 a month can help us keep going. You can also find my partner September at Twitch and Twitter at 9of12. That's NINEOF12. And you can also hear our In the Geek Girls podcast. Thank you for listening, and bless your heart.